90-something% of kids experience bullying, and this is even with the zero-tolerance policies and the anti-bullying propaganda that goes all over the place. So there's obviously still a problem.
Not necessarily bullying, more like not understanding what the difference between bullying and just playing around. When I was younger, I would call it bullying. Like, I remember in middle school they would make fun of me. They told me I liked this guy, but in reality they were just putting words in my mouth. When in reality I should, oh yeah, I totally like this guy, in a sarcastic way. But when I was younger I didn't understand that.
Bullying is one of those issues that transcends autism. In fact, it can apply to any disability. But in reality, whatever label you have, if you have a disability, you're still subject to the stigma of disability society brings on you. I mean, you can call yourself whatever you like. People of many disabilities have suffered bullying. However, bullying is not always created equal. The demarcation often has to be made as to whether or not the disability you have has social deficits or does not impair you socially. Because rule of thumb, if you have a disability that impairs you socially, you're going to be subject to more bullying because you're going to have a harder time fitting in with people. Therefore, when discussing bullying, we need to be aware of how social deficits in a disability can often impact the level of bullying you're enduring and also the level of bullying that people will inflict on you. Teachers and high school administrators need to be far more aware than they are in some places as to the danger that hanging out with high school kids can entail if you don't know how to behave socially with them. Many teachers have an attitude that you need to hang out with your peers as much as possible to make friends. However, sometimes your peers are the most dangerous group of people to hang out with, especially in middle and high school, where you're socially expected to lie about things that aren't really the right thing to do in order to fit in. Or in other cases, use a lot of bad language that many people with autism are actually not comfortable engaging in.
There was a particular year, this girl who, I don't know what I said to her, but I said something to her, and it was an inappropriate statement, as you know, as usually these things get started with some type of inappropriate statements like, you know, why don't you comb your hair or something like that. She just tormented me for the rest of the things. She was taking my lunch and just yelling at me and calling me all kinds of things and so forth, which was a horrible experience to go through. I remember one time, then this does go back to elementary school, we were just out in the recess and just running around in this yard outside of school, and I just tired of it. And sort of sat down and was unaware of my environment, and I sat down on this dead mouse, you know, I think it was a rat actually, and the other kid like, oh my God, no you didn't, you know, it's like, you know, and that went on for weeks and months, you know, like this, who is it? Yeah, it was him, it was Paul, he's the one that sat down that dead rat, oh my God, it was him, and he was pointing at me and everything. So, so that was a horrible experience as well. What was really, really fortunate for me was having a brother that was older, 1 year older than me. And my brother David was everything that I wasn't. He was popular, a social role model of just what everybody wanted to be in, you know, in his life. And he was so popular and so well liked, and everybody, girls and guys, just liked him so much. All of those who interacted with me and had this reaction that they should bully me and they should, you know, call me all kinds of names to mistreat me, stopped in their tracks once they realized I was David's brother. Oh my God, you know, did you know that was David's brother? Oh no, and it was a real godsend, especially, you know, it's the 70s and all that was going on in the 70s, and living in New York, and you know, which sometimes had its mean streets, you know, and that was real fortunate for me to have that in my life.
The bullying happened more from adults in his life than children. I never expected I'd have to worry about adults who are entrusted to take care of children to mistreat my child worse than other children would. The principal at the first school he went to for kindergarten and first grade, he hated children that had that presented any sort of a challenge to him. So my son to him was like evil incarnate. One thing I remember, Matt was in the special ed room alone, crying his eyes out, and the principal made a point of coming from out in the hallway into the room, walking up to my son and saying, "You sound like you're dying." It got to the point where he was actually having physical fights with the special ed teacher, who was a male, and he'd come home with red marks on his arms from the teacher grabbing him and dragging him into the calming room, which is like a little prison cell. Oh, and through all of this, he would get locked up in rooms, pinned down by people. I heard from another woman, just as an anecdotal thing, the principal actually said to her, "You know, we may as well just give up. Your son has no soul," and got up and walked out. So when you have somebody like that who has already decided that your child is some sort of monster, then you're not going to get anywhere. I fought with the school district for years to try to get him into a better place, and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it.
Bullying sucks, but what do we do about it? First, the school and the parents need to be involved and care. With a person with Asperger's, the bullying could have been building for a long time, and then they finally snapped and retaliated with violence. So the teacher needs to look at more than just physical damage before deciding guilt. Obviously, violence should be your last resort, but it's still an option. It's nice to know that you can de-escalate a situation, and if it goes south, you can still handle it. It's nice to know you're not powerless. You can tell a teacher or parent, and they can usually help, but not always, and that's when it's up to you to help yourself.